Alright, today we're going to be doing multiplying polynomials. We've already covered adding and subtracting. Next we're going to be doing multiplying. When we're multiplying, we've already hit this a little bit with product of powers on your foldable. But when we're multiplying, remember to multiply the coefficient, which is the big number in front, and then add the exponent, or the little number. So if I ever tell you to multiply big, add little, make sure you know what the big number is and what the little number is. Okay? So we're going to practice some of this, starting off basic and then getting harder each example. Okay? Our first two examples, pretty easy. It's a monomial times a monomial. Now monomial just means, the prefix mono means one. So we're going to have one term times, with a little dot here, another one term. So a monomial times one monomial is just one term times another. So when we do that, we multiply the big numbers. So we're going to multiply 4 times 3. That is 12. Since we're multiplying, we get 12. And then we add the little numbers, which are our exponents. So we do 2 plus 3. And we know we can add those because they have the same base. So I can go ahead and write x down here, and then when I add 2 plus 3, I get 5. So my answer for that was 12x to the 5th. Now, if these were not the same base, then I can't multiply them. They have to have the same base, and then we can add their exponents. Okay? So if this was a different letter, then we would have another letter out here for our answer. Next example, number 2, just another way to see it. 3a squared with parentheses. When there's parentheses there, I just multiply. So I multiply my big. 3 times 2 is 6. And then I'm going to add, because they have the same base, I'm going to add my exponents. 2 plus 1. Now this is imaginary 1 right here, so I have to remember, even though it's not written, it's not 0. Okay? There's 1a here, so I need to remember that the exponent is 1. So 2 plus that 1 is 3. So my answer was 6a cubed. Okay, so don't forget, when there's not an exponent written, that doesn't mean that it's not there. It's just 1 on the top. Okay, so our next example, we'll be dealing with monomial times a binomial and a trinomial. Okay, mono means 1, bi means 2, tri means 3. Okay, so we'll talk about a monomial, one term, times a binomial first. That is 2 terms. I have 1 term here, 2 terms there. So we're going to distribute. It's just simply distributing. But now we have terms with variables and exponents. So we're going to distribute this 3x to our 2x squared and to our negative 5x. Now we're using the same principle we just learned in monomial times a monomial, with the product of powers. So I need to multiply this 3 times 2 to get 6. And then I take the x's, they are the same base, so I know I can add their exponents. And remember, this x has a 1, so I'm going to add 1 to 2 and get 3. So I have 6a cubed to start out with. That takes care of my first term. Excuse me. And then my next term is a negative 5x. So 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. And then my x has a 1 here. This x also has a 1 as an exponent, so I'm going to add those two together. That gives me a negative 15x squared. So my final answer is 6x cubed minus 15x squared. That is a monomial times a binomial, because I had 1 term times 2 terms. Now we're going to do a monomial times a trinomial. Okay, so our monomial is negative 4x. We're going to distribute, that's just another binomial, excuse me. That is negative 4x times our negative x. If you see here, I only have 2 terms. I don't have a trinomial, I have a binomial. That's my bad. Negative 4x times negative x. Then we're going to distribute that to our positive 7. So negative 4x times negative x. This is a negative 4 times negative 1. Remember, the 1's imaginary, so we just have to remember negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. And then I can add my exponents to get x squared. Then I distribute the negative 4x to a 7. Okay, I don't have any term here to multiply by, but that doesn't mean I can't multiply it by this whole number. The coefficient can be still multiplied to our whole number. So negative 4 times 7 is a negative 28, and then simply add the x there. Okay, so that's just like multiplying this term right here by 7 to get negative 28x. Those are both examples of a monomial times a binomial. Now, a monomial times a trinomial would just simply have another term out here. You would have 3 terms and not just 2. Okay? Do the same process. You're just distributing. You could go on for forever. You could have 5 terms out here. That would be a polynomial. Whenever you have 4 or more terms, that is a polynomial. Poly means many. So you could have as many terms out here, but you would still do the same process. Okay, you would still distribute whatever's on the outside to the inside, and that would get your answer. Okay, so let's see what we have next here. Alright, so now we're going to have a binomial times a binomial. So bi is 2 times 2. So we have 2 terms times another 2 terms. Okay, now I'm going to teach this 2 different ways. I want you to pick your favorite way and stick with it. Don't flip-flop back and forth from splitting and distributing to a box method. Either go with a split and distribute or go with the box. Don't flip-flop between the 2. Okay, so we have a binomial. Our binomial to start off with is x plus 3. Our second binomial is x minus 2. Okay, with the split and distribute way, go ahead and mark that down that this is splitting and distributing. You split your first term. So our first binomial was x plus 3. So we're going to split that up. So we have x out here, and then we're going to multiply it by our second term. So we split, and then we distribute it into the second term, or second binomial. So we're going to distribute this x into the x minus 2, and then we take that positive 3, and we're going to distribute it also to that x minus 2. Okay, so you're distributing it twice. Or to the same thing, but with different things, with different parts of the binomial. Okay, you'll get the picture. X squared comes from my x times my x, and then x times my negative 2 to get negative 2x. Hopefully you can see that we're just distributing just like we did previously when a monomial times a binomial. That's all this is. And then you distribute the 3 to get 3x and negative 6. So I had 3x here and a negative 6 here. Now the important part with this process is making sure that you combine your like terms. I recognize that negative 2x and positive 3x, those are the same. They have the same base and the same exponent of 1, so I can combine those 2 together. Negative 2 plus 3 gives me 1x, because the variable they had, the base they had, was x. So my final answer is x squared plus x minus 6. Okay, so all you did, split that up and distribute both parts, both terms of that binomial to this second binomial, and get your final answer. Now, we're going to do this the second way, which is the box method, and we need to see if it gets the same answer. Hopefully it will. The box method, what you do, you literally draw a box. So you're going to draw a box around here, and it's kind of like a foursquare, a game foursquare on the concrete. You make that little square with a box in there. Then you're going to take your first term, put it on top. You're going to take your second term, making sure you bring the sign with it, and you're going to put it on the side over here. So you have the x with this first part of the box, and then you have negative 2 for this second part of the box. Now we're going to just multiply to get inside the box. So when I take my x and my x, I multiply them together, that gives me an x squared. Then I'm going to take my x and my 3, I'm going to multiply them together to get 3x. Then I'm going to take my x and my negative 2, and multiply them together to get negative 2x. Then my last part is negative 2 times positive 3, that gives me negative 6. Once I have my box filled out, I just bring everything out, and then I'm going to combine and get my final answer. So I bring out my x squared, bring out my negative 2x, bring out my negative 3, or my positive 3x, and my negative 6. When I do that, I realize there's like terms that I can combine to make this simplified, and negative 2 plus 3 is a positive 1, so I have positive 1x, so I have x squared plus x minus 6, because I bring that negative 6 down. Now that answer matched what I had over here, so both ways gave me the same answer. So you need to pick whichever way you like and stick with it. If you like to split and distribute when we're practicing these, or when you're doing your homework, stick with that method. Don't go from split and distribute to box, or if you like the box method, you like drawing the box and being able to fill it in and pulling it out and being able to simplify things, then go with that. Don't go back to split and distribute. You pick whichever way, copy down both, but you pick whichever way you would like to solve these problems best. Okay, so we got another example of this to see it one more time. Okay, so it's another binomial times another binomial. So this time we have 2x minus 4. That's my first binomial. And then I have negative x plus 1. That's my second binomial. Okay, this side is going to be the split and distribute side. This side, the right side, will be your box method. So we'll do split and distribute first. I split up my first binomial. I'm going to split it up and distribute it to my second binomial. So I have 2x here. I'm going to distribute it to my negative x, and I'm going to distribute it also to that positive 1 that I have. Then I take my negative 4. Remember, don't forget your sign. I bring that negative 4 down. I'm also going to distribute to the negative x and the positive 1. When I do this first part, distributing, I get 2x times negative x. That gives me negative 2x squared. And then I have 2x times 1, and I get a positive 2x. Okay, this part distributing should be easy now because it's just product of powers. Then I take my negative 4, multiply it to that negative 1x. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4, and I bring down my variable with it. And then the last part is negative 4 times positive 1, that is negative 4. Again, I need to make sure that there's no like terms that I can combine here before I box in my final answer. And if I look, I have a positive 2x and a positive 4x. When I combine those together, 2 plus 4, I can get 6x. That is the most simplified version of this whole problem. So this is negative 2x squared plus 6 minus 4. That is my final answer for that problem. Okay. Now we're going to do the box method. Same thing. You draw your box with your cross in the middle, and then you take the first term, put it on top. You have your 2x here, your negative 4 here. Don't forget your sign. Then you take the second term, the second binomial, and you put your negative x first and your positive 1 underneath. Then we just fill in the box by multiplying. Negative x times 2x, that is negative 2x squared, because I have a 1 and a 1, and I add them together to get 2. Then I take my negative x and my negative 4, that becomes 4x. I take my 2x, my positive 1, 1 times anything becomes itself, so it stays 2x. And then 1 times negative 4 again stays itself, which is negative 4. Then I take everything out and write it out so I can see if I need to combine anything. I have negative 2x squared, that doesn't match with anything, so I can write it down. I have 2x and a 4x, those are like terms, so I combine those together to get 6x, and then I have my negative 4 here, and I just bring him down since there's nothing else to combine with it. Because I cannot add these things together, they don't have the same base and the same exponent, this is my final answer. I can't add this negative 2 to the 6 because they don't both have a 2 as the exponent. Okay, so that is my final answer. And again, if I looked, I did it both ways and I got the same answer both times. Okay, so you pick your favorite way. You've seen it twice. You pick your favorite way and go with it. Next, we're going to do one more example. And this time, we're going to do a binomial, which was 2 terms, times a trinomial, which is 3 terms. Okay, so our binomial was x plus 3. Our trinomial is 2x squared minus x plus 2. This is the split and distribute method. Okay, so we're going to do the split and distribute method, then we'll do the box method next. I split up my binomial. It's the first term, I split it up. I take my x, distribute it all through this second trinomial. And then I take that positive 3, and I'm going to distribute to that trinomial as well. Okay, so I get 2x cubed minus x squared plus 2x when I distribute this x into every term. And then I take the 3, distribute it, I get 6x squared minus 3x plus 6. Okay, then I'm going to take both terms and I'm going to look to see what I have in common. I don't have anything in common with my 2x cubed, so I just bring it down. Then I have a negative x squared and I underline 6x squared because those are both have the same base and exponent. When I combine those two, I get 5 because negative 1 plus 6 is positive 5, so I have 5x squared here. Then I have a 2x, I circled it because I have negative 3x. It's also the same because it has the same base and exponent here. Negative 3 plus 2 is a negative 1, so I have negative 1x. And then I have my 6 left at the end, and I just bring him down since there's nothing else to add to it. Okay, so that is my final answer using the split and distribute method. We're going to do it the box method, and then we'll be done multiplying. Okay, so our last problem here we got. It's same binomial, same trinomial. We're just going to do the box method now. So you take your box. It no longer is a box. It's more of a rectangle because you have 3 terms going down the side. So I take my first term, x and 3. I have that there. Then I have 2x squared on the side, a negative x on the side, and a positive 2 on the side. So you have 3 terms going down the side because it's a trinomial. Then you just fill in the box. 2x squared times an x squared, that is 2x cubed. Remember there's an imaginary 1 on top of that x, so I can add that 2 plus 1 to get 2x cubed. take the 3, the 2x squared, that becomes 6x squared. And then I take my x and my negative x, that becomes negative x squared. I take 3 and negative x, that becomes negative 3x. Then I take my x and my 2, that becomes 2x, and then 2 times 3 is positive 6. When I'm done filling in my boxes here, I need to take everything out so I can see what I can combine. So if I write 2x cubed minus x squared plus 6x squared minus 3x plus 2x plus 6, I can easily see what's going to combine this way because everything was already written beside each other to start out with. So I bring down my 2x cubed, nothing matched up with it. I have negative x squared and positive 6x squared together here. So negative x squared plus 6x squared is a positive 5x squared. And then I have a negative 3x, positive 2x, again that becomes negative 1x. And then I have a positive 6 here to get 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus x